At one point...
Well, to start with, we thought that maybe when they first started those things, we thought maybe that we were going to be able to get by with them. But when they tore down our domestic line on the south side of Bruce Road 20 and put up a new line on the north side of Bruce Road 20 and put their line going to their substation on the top and put ours right below, and then turned around and dumped in the juice from 7 turbines right at the corner of the 4th, which is where we live, we knew we were in big trouble. And I got Dave calling to come and take a few readings on the junk that was coming in, and it was just horrendous. So the question is, what do we do? And Dave managed to find 2 large filters to put on the 2 hot lines, because there was dirt coming in both of them, and a ronk blocker for the neutral, because there was dirt coming in it. And that made it barely livable. But I'd say in the daytime. But at night, we still couldn't sleep. So I went to a fella in Burvey that sells solar type stuff, and got a bunch of batteries from him, and got a charger and a discharger, and actually charged these batteries in the daytime from the barn lines, and then hit that main switch on the hydro at night when we go to bed, and run the
inverter.
Run the inverter and run the deep freeze and fridge and whatever you had to have. We had to have circ power on our furnace, but we run that at night. And that was the only way we could get any sleep, was to shut that dirt off.
So you shut your hydro off every night?
We shut the big switch off and run on this other stuff.
When you say you knew you were in trouble, can you elaborate on that?
We couldn't sleep.
We couldn't sleep, and I developed tinnitus, and he developed tinnitus 2 weeks after me.
And I still have it. I'm sitting here and my ears are just screeching. And if I go to drive up any road with a big hydro line on certain days, that tinnitus just goes crazy. So, we're never going to get rid of this. I went to a specialist. I went to a doctor. I went to a specialist in, I think it was Wingham, and he was actually from London. And he sent me down to London, and they done a whole bunch of tests, and might as well talk to that tree out there. But the damage is done, and it's not going to undo itself, eh? So we just got to live with it.
Can you discuss the events that took place once you decided to vacate your home?
Well, in the beginning, I thought we were in such a hopeless situation that we might never get out of it. And it ended up when this Amish gentleman phoned. I guess somewhere he had heard that there was a problem, and he said, I heard you might be interested in selling your farm. And the first year, they didn't agree on price, and so I thought we had lost him. The next year, when I thought it was even getting worse, and here we were with no future, he phoned again. And they managed to come to an agreement at that time. And he gave us time because we weren't sure where we were going. And he did give us a certain amount of time that we didn't have to move the day that the sale took place. and we were so afraid that something was going to happen, that the deal might fall through, that we really didn't start looking until we were pretty sure that the sale was going to be completed.
Okay. Can you discuss the effects vacating your home had on you, your family?
Well, I didn't want to leave the farm. I would just as soon stayed there. I could have rented the land and probably lived quite comfortably, but when this got going, you had to get away from it. If you had any chance of getting out, you had to get out. The torture was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it.
Can you?
And the people from Owen Sound, that MOE or whatever they call themselves,
the environment.
I phoned them a few times, and he showed up with his monkey suit on and walked around the yard, and I might as well have talked to that tree out there. He was just covering his tail and doing his job, and that's it. And he didn't seem to care anything about what was going on. Eh?
And all they were doing was they were measuring the noise volume from the windmills. Nobody seemed to be interested. When you start talking about the hydro, you're impacting two companies. And neither one wants to talk about the other one. Although I'm sure that the wind company paid for the new poles, the hydro poles that both lines traveled on.
And when you talk to the wind company about this dirty hydro, they'd say, well, you better go talk to Hydro 1. And when you phoned Hydro 1, they'd say, well, you better talk to the wind company.
If you mentioned the word windmill, it was just, we don't talk about windmills. You see your MP or your wind company.
Well, our liberal government is just driving us into the ground as far as I'm concerned. They have no idea about what it's like living in a rural area. And they don't care. Their votes aren't there. Plain and simple.
You spoke about torture and trouble, and I'm wondering if you can go into any more detail as to what you mean by that.
Well, I used to think I cut my own wood for years in the bush. I had an outside furnace, and I don't know how many years I cut wood, but it was a long time. But anyway, I used to think that was the greatest place to be. In the middle of winter, you could, I'd take the tractor back to the bush, and it would be storming and blowing and carrying on. When I get into the bush, it was quiet, and you could cut up a bunch of stuff, and you could shut the saw off, and it was just great. It was nice and quiet, and no racket. But once these things got going, I had earplugs shoved in my ears, and I had the hard hearing protectors over top of that, and I'd shut the saw off and think, what in the hell is this noise? And if those turbines were facing towards the bush, there was that infrasound or whatever it is was just going through those trees, and the racket was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. You'd think, God, I got to get out of here, eh? Where start the saw, it sounded better than what this did.
and you mentioned hopeless. What can you expand on?
I did that one year. We had been away in the winter, and that was really fortunate that we were even able to do that during those years that we were living with them. It just gave us a break from what we were living with. And I kept saying that winter that I didn't want to go home, but I didn't think the U.S. would let me stay. And so that was kind of like I just dreaded going back into the situation.
And I ended up developing a irregular heartbeat, and